Hello and welcome to Out of This World, and I am esoteric Barbie, and joining me tonight is Malibu Barbie, aka Rachel Wilson. How are you, Rachel?
Good. I'm the stereotypical 80s Barbie that I had as a little girl. So it was actually fun. Like I had
You
too much fun with the bow and the side ponytail. I
you
was
look
like,
adorable. Your pink
oh,
shade is on point. It is amazing. I love it. I love your makeup, the whole look. Um,
thanks. I love your look too. Yours is super cute. You remind me of my aunt kept her like 70s Barbies, which were a little classier. You know what I mean? Like
uh,
Barbie from the 80s and 90s had a lot more makeup and stuff like that. And my aunt had her 70s Barbies and they would wear like little pearls in the cardigan and they had the cute hair and everything, but they weren't quite as like made up. So that's you remind me of my aunt's like classy 70s midge Barbie, probably. I think that was the brunette Barbie.
Midge, yeah, I almost went with the blue eyeshadow because I cannot think of Barbie without the blue, like
I
bright
know.
blue eyeshadow, right?
I did
Oh,
like a tiny bit, not too
yeah,
much, but
you
yeah,
got it.
kind of the same thing. And I don't
Yeah.
have blue eyes or anything, so I had to try.
I was always more of a My Little Pony girl. So growing up, I could take or leave Barbie, didn't really care, but I had all the ponies. I had all of the water ponies. I had the baby ponies. I had the flying ponies. I had the pony castle. So yeah, I love My Little Pony until it became a sex symbol for weirdos.
Yeah.
So
I found
going,
out about that the hard way one day.
yeah.
uh I was a She-Ra girl. She-Ra was my jam, as probably not surprising to anyone, right? Because she was like kind of like a warrior princess, and I
Hmm.
thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just waiting for like the She-Ra update to come out so we can do that one someday, and I can dress like She-Ra.
Nice.
But I had Barbies and I had GI Joes and I had Kens and I like played with all the things. So yeah.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about Barbie, but before that, we are going to play a fun game because I've been getting a lot of messages from people, and they say, I found you from Rachel, but you're just full of feminism, and all you do is feminist talking points. And I'm just kind of like flabbergasted. You know, uh,
Yeah, I had a few comments like that on my channel about you and I was like, what do
okay,
you mean? I was
right.
just like,
So
what are you even talking about? I was like found myself debating people in the comments over it.
I said, okay, bet. So, I'm going to get my expert friend on feminism, Rachel, to write out a questionnaire for me to see how feminist I actually am. And I also made this handy dandy feminist uh, spectrum. You know me, I love my spectrums, and we can explain that. You want to let's talk about this first, and then we can do the quiz and see where I
Yeah.
fall on the map here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going from most feminist to least feminist, right? This side
Yeah.
is most feminist. Crazy cat lady from The Simpsons,
Simpsons.
right? So apparently this is the final boss of feminism. This is how you will end up if you buy into these ideologies covered in cat hair. And I get that because people who are done being abused and dealing with crazy people, they just want to go to the animals. I mean, I have thought myself like I'm just going to get a career as a veterinarian or a dolphin trainer or a kitty wrangler or anything that doesn't have to do with crazy people. But we can't run away from people. We just gotta stick it out. And living with cats, like it's just like mid at best. I mean, you got Toxoplasma gondii or whatever.
Yeah.
You got to clean up all of their poo and they smell bad. And so, you don't want to be covered in cats when you're at the end of your life, right?
No.
And so going from there, we have old Rachel's favorite, Gloria Steinem.
Yay.
It, and I can't believe I found this picture of her doing the occult hand symbol called Triangle of Manifestation, also a fire sign in Aleister Crowley's Selima. So she's doing that old Kabbalah. Can you see that right there?
Oh yeah, I sure can. That was from the famous Shout Your Abortion campaign.
Right. And you can see that t-shirt she's wearing. She's very proud.
Yeah.
Can you see that? Yep.
Yep. It's a badge of honor. It's like a initiation into the feminist right or something, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And it's also a sacrament in the Church of Satan, or the Satanic Temple, I should say,
Yeah.
is the Abobos. So going down for first Cat Lady, then to Gloria Steinem, then your less serious feminist, but still kind of, outspokenly, this is what a feminist looks like, Ashley Judd.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, you have the mom from Mary Poppins. That makes me so happy. She's perfect. And she's in the exact right place.
Yes. This is the spectrum that came out of my crazy head. So, Cat Lady, Gloria Steinem, down the line, Ashley Judd. I mean,
Yeah.
she's kind of the Hollywood feminist, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a cool thing to be.
Yeah, it's
Wear
like a
your t-shirt.
performative feminist. They're definitely like man haters, but they also are totally comfortable with being like a sexy actress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so then down the line from there, you've got the mom from Mary Poppins, who is a literal suffragette,
Yep.
right? But she's down here because she still loves her family and she still obeys her husband and she still
Yeah.
submits to everything he says and tries
Yeah.
to do everything for him.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I love about that movie, Mary Poppins, anyways, is the whole point of the movie is the parents need to invest more time in their children and not in
Yes.
their jobs and their extracurricular things. So the
Yeah.
family comes together as a unit as it should, and it doesn't need the nanny anymore in Mary Poppins, right?
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
why she's kind of towards the middle because she's like working as a feminist, but she still is the traditional values, right?
Yeah.
And she loves her husband. And then for neutral, I put, your neutral mom,
Yeah.
uh, right? She doesn't really care about feminism. She's just, she likes to shop at Chinos and Talbots and she loves her kids and she's a normie, an
Like
NPC
a
mom.
normie soccer
Right.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right to the right of her is base homeschool mom,
That's me.
right? So she's got all the mom values and she's got the family, but she's also got the spice, right? You've
Do
got
have a
the
little,
knowledge.
yeah. I do have a
And
little spice.
yeah. Um and you are like opposed to this feminism,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But just like all conspiracy theorists and based people, there's an edge. There's a sweet
Yeah.
spot,
There
right?
is.
And it's right where Rachel is.
Yeah, I
Because
very controversially am okay with pumping my own gas. So I can't be all the way to the other side of the
right.
spectrum.
So this is kind of like the good area, between NPC and I put after Rachel comes like the Duggars. Do you know who those guys are?
Oh yeah, I do because
Okay.
people will sometimes call me like a Duggar mom or something, and I'm like,
No, you're not quite Duggar mom. You're still cool. Like you have because okay, they're cute and wholesome, but you just know that this guy, like, there's something off about.
yeah, it's the same thing as like with the fundamentalist LDS people, where it's like all the women have to have the creepy hairdo and dress the same, and it gets culty and weird and a little creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're living on the edge of weird. And you just know he he wants all these kids for like his own personal like record setting agenda of his ego or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, oh, and they have a lot of scandals.
They do.
So there's
They have a lot of icky scandals.
it's not all paradise in this quiverful family right here.
Right, right.
Right. And then going down from there, you have even worse than a Duggar would be like a pick-me clown. These are the girls who like say they're in the men's rights community and
Yes.
like active for men's issues and stuff. And it's like if there's one job that women just should not care about doing, it's men's rights activism. And
Yes.
because a lot of these girls who are in the men's rights community are trying to heal them with their like dirty pictures.
Yes. Yes. There's one
Right.
that Andrew does a show called Lunatics on the Internet where he covers crazy people online. And there's a girl who does that. She says she's a men's rights advocate and she has like an OnlyFans. Actually, I think it's technically a Patreon, but it's the same thing. It's like for only $9.99 a month, you can look at all these naked pictures of me that I put up. And I'm like, you're helping the men by taking their money and getting them to look at porn.
Mm-hmm.
How is this helping the men again?
Yeah.
And those women, those are the ones that drive me crazy because they're the actual grifters, and I'll get lumped in with the grifters sometimes, and I'm like, no, those, I'm not trying to rescue the men. I can't rescue men. Like,
Right. That's not
it's
our
not
job.
even my place to do.
No. That's not even where we need to be at.
Yeah. So any woman who says she's saving the men, like, major red flag.
Exactly. She's healing them with her magic cooter powers. And she looks like a clown because she's never going to get a family because no one's ever going to respect, because men don't even respect that stuff.
No.
Right.
No.
So then,
and you tend to get like the kind of most hopeless simp kind of guys, the incel, the type of guys who will pay $1,000 for some chick's bathwater or panties or something gross like that. And they build a following off of that and then like cater to those men like they're mommy or something. It's very bizarre. It's a creepy dynamic, I think. And I really don't like being lumped in with them.
Yeah. So then what's worse than a pick me? If you got your FLDS right there, I don't know if you can see that, the old Warren Jeffs.
Ugh.
Right?
Oh,
and his
my God.
Flock of beauty prairie muffins right there. And so falling off into this side of anti-feminism is when you start to make an idol out of men.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's right? idolizing men to the point that, yeah, it's like, do you really want to be a sister wife? And can anyone ever explain? Because I've watched a bunch of documentaries on the fundamentalist LDS people and Warren Jeffs, and horrible things, horrible, awful things that went on with children and young girls in that place. But they never explained to me what's with the weird hairdo. Why do they all got to have the same crazy, weird, like,
right?
Swoopy braided hairdo?
Yeah. If I ever do a Mormon show, I'm going to try and recreate that because it is kind of a feat. I mean, it's like up and down and the hairspray, and
they have whole manuals. Did you know that they have like videos and like books and stuff that teach them how to do? They have like 5 acceptable hairstyles that are like this, and it all comes from Warren Jeff's dad or maybe the guy that came before him. There's only been like a few generations of these people, but it's a rabbit hole to go down, man. And yeah, they've got like these 5 bizarre Little House on the Prairie hairstyles that are the only acceptable hairdos. And I'm like,
yeah. So
we don't want to take things that far. You just end up a whole different flavor of weird.
Yeah. So we're going to try and stay away from both extremes of this spectrum tonight, and see where I land. So I said, Rachel, make me up a quiz. You're the expert on feminism. We're going to find out if Jamie is actually a secret undercover feminist here to like undermine all of your manly ideas.
Yeah. I don't know how people think that works. Like, I'm not sure what exactly they think you're up to.
And when you use things like that, it kind of loses meaning. Like racism kind of has lost its meaning now when you just can call anybody racist for any reason. So now they're going to call every woman a feminist for any reason. And it's kind of like blowing out of proportion. Like,
yeah. And I have, like, since doing this stuff, I have run into those people online who, like, they'll even take issue with me and things that I say and be like, no, it should be like, the people who really actually do think women should be chained to the stove in the kitchen and not permitted to leave the house. And that's where you're getting all this strange crossover with guys who used to be pickup artists and they're now reformed pickup artists, and they're suddenly based Muslims, supposedly. And the incel crowd loves it because they're like, yeah, we'll just have Islam and then we'll force the women and I'll get a harem. I can be like this creepy person that never leaves my parents' basement and eats chicken tendies and drinks chocolate milk, and I'll just get this harem of like Islamic chicks that are given to me by the patriarchal law or something. They literally want like burqas and stuff like that. I used to think it was a joke until I found some of these creepy, darker reaches of the internet where there's people that really think this way. And I was like, oh, they're real. Okay. And those people are going to see literally everything. Like, unless you are on your knees filleting them, they are going to think that you're a feminist.
Right.
Not even exaggerating. So we don't want that.
I wonder how come feminists don't pick up issues like you just mentioned, Islam, where they actually try to blank out women from society by making them wear all black and restricting them from free movement and things like that. Like, how come they don't go after that?
They're oddly supportive of that stuff.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like, Western feminists are like strangely protective of, like, leave Islam alone. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, it's the same thing with the Skittles activists. They're not willing to go after like the fundamentalist Islamic areas. And I think it's because you do run the risk of more backlash. Like, Christians are not going to come cut your head off, right? If you insult them. Whereas some of the Muslims, not as friendly. We'll just put it that way. So I think there's that element. They're much harder to attack. They feel like Christians are this soft target that everyone can just go after and attack. So I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, like even Gloria Steinem and a lot of the Western feminists who would go to like India or Central Asia, oddly respectful and wearing like a veil when they go there sometimes even. And it's like, wait a minute, what about their patriarchy? Oh, well, that's a different culture and we have to respect it. But here in the West, like, if a man so much as asks you to like grab his, beer out of the fridge for him on your way to the living room, that's slavery, right? So the hard thing about feminism is that it's total cognitive dissonance, which we're going to get into with this movie, but you can't really expect it to make sense, I guess is what I'm saying, because it doesn't make sense. So
because when people kept saying that about me, I actually went and I said, okay, bet, look, I'm gonna look up feminism and see if I fall into any, and I just got discouraged because there was so many. Okay, there's 4 waves of feminism, so there's 4 separate histories, and there's like this kind and that kind. There's 12 levels, Rachel, just on Wikipedia. I know you probably know all this, but my head just went, no way am I going that far. That's when I thought, I'm just going to make my spectrum art, and I'm going to ask Rachel to break it down for us because she knows way better than I do.
Yeah, that's what makes this topic so difficult to tackle sometimes. Like, there's a couple of people I talk to on Twitter who are like raging feminist radicals, but they oddly have respect for me and I oddly have respect for them, because to me, at least, they're thinking about it. At least they're trying to work their way through these questions and figure out like, okay, what are best practices in society? What is actually a problem and what's actually not. Like, they're actually at least trying to attack the subject and think about it. Whereas what you get from 90% of people is just reaction, like their knee-jerk reaction of what they've already been conditioned with. And that just gets very boring. It's like the same old tropes, and it's like, I'll say something and then they're like, oh my gosh, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like it's the same like 4 responses that I get over and over and over, which is how I know these are conditioned responses, that they're just parroting and repeating what they've heard from movies, pop culture, mainstream, school, whatever it is. So it's a tough thing to navigate, because you have really crazy radical feminist separatists, and then you have feminists like Camille Paglia or Christina Hoff Sommers, who are like really close to me but still identify as feminists. They just think that like we took it way too far, and everyone in between. So it's just like a really, really mixed bag. But I tried to think of my like top 10 questions that would really kind of sort out, where somebody is on the spectrum. So hopefully we will get like a decent measurement of just how feminist you are.
Okay, I'm curious. I'm ready. Let's have it.
Okay. Oh, hold on. I lost my thing. Okay. So, question number 1 is, do you believe that a woman should have the right to do whatever she wants? If we have to be a little TOS friendly. If a woman gets pregnant and she wasn't planning on it and she's not so fond of the idea, should she be able to do whatever she wants regardless of the father's wishes or how far along that situation is? Like, are you unequivocally pro choice or unequivocally pro life, or do you have some caveats one way or the other?
Well, my worldview answers that question. So orthodoxy, you do not terminate pregnancies for any reason whatsoever. You also don't do a lot of, I mean, you have talked to your spiritual father, but like IVF and surrogates, and that's getting weird now, the surrogate people.
Yeah.
So no. God opens and closes the womb, and you have your free will is in if you want to submit to the sex act or not. That's the choice, right?
Yes.
So
Okay.
I do not believe that you should be able to do whatever you want with a pregnancy.
Okay. And that kind of answers my second question, because my second question was going to be, if you are a young lady on a career path and you have a bright future ahead of you, but you do want children, are you open to using like surrogates so that you don't have to like deal with pregnancy? So that would be a no on that one.
Right. I don't think that's orthodox. I mean, you'd have to double check with your priest, but I don't think that there's a lot of cases where they allow that kind of.
Yeah. And my question was specifically like for the purposes of I like the abstract idea of having a child, but I don't want to go through birth and pregnancy and finding a father and getting married. So I'm just gonna like outsource a womb and get a baby that way, kind of like some of the stars are doing.
The Kardashians have done
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chrissy Teigen and John Legend have done that.
Yeah.
Um, Grimes.
Yep.
Uh,
Elon Musk has done that with 2, I believe. I think he and Grimes have done that with 2
yeah.
so far.
So no, that's not orthodox.
Okay.
There was just a case with a same-sex couple that had a surrogate, and the surrogate developed a cancerous tumor and wanted to deliver the baby early, and the baby lived, but the same-sex couple voted to not offer life-giving services to the preemie baby, so it died.
I saw that. It was so horrible.
So it's a very cheapening of life.
Yeah, it's like a pet. It's like having a designer puppy to me.
Yeah.
When these same-sex couples are making like designer babies with surrogates, and yeah, like the littlest thing goes wrong and they're like, oh, it might be tainted. No, we'll just get rid of that one and get it and do it a new one. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
basically, they didn't have a good reason. It was just like, oh, it might be tainted. It was like a tomato that had like a slight blemish on it. We'll just
Yeah.
throw it away and get a new tomato that's
Right. It's
pristine.
not a part of their family that they created through love, and they want to like do everything they can to give it the best chance. They were just like, no, it might be blemish, like you said. So
Yeah. Yeah,
let's
we'll
get
just
rid of it.
start over. Okay. Question number 3 is, do you think that we will not be equal until we have a woman president?
What is even equal? Like, it's funny because you get in trouble a lot on Twitter for
I
being
do.
mean Barbie. And a lot of these people are arguing about the wrong thing. Like your whole jumping off point is stupid. Both sides. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about
Yeah, yeah.
people who get worked up like about voting, because you're not even on the level of like voting is a scam.
Yeah.
Okay, right? And so you're arguing about whether women should vote or men should vote, or what, like if they hold these kinds of jobs, only these kinds of people can vote. It's just like throw the whole thing away, because I don't think we should have to do all these things. Like my position for women in the workforce and doing whatever is like we shouldn't have to, not that we can't, but we shouldn't have to worry about these things, because we should be doing other things that men can't do, like having families,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's how I feel. I mean, that's what I say when people are like, you want to take away my right to vote? And I'm like, No, you're thinking of it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of universal democracy. Like the one person, one vote idea overall is what I'm against. And
Yeah.
I think that women's suffrage is just one, probably the most obvious example of how that's problematic, right? So like you're right, they're thinking of it in a different paradigm.
Yeah. So
They're
I'm
all
trying to reframe it.
Yeah, they're
And
already starting with like a presupposition, a framework of how they think the world should be that you and I don't really adhere to.
right.
Yeah.
So women
Because
shouldn't
that's
have to
probably
split
why
this.
when you say certain things, people who are coming from that framework are like, oh, she's a feminist. She's taking a feminist position. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, she starts from a completely different framework of how she sees the world and what her worldview is. So it's not that simple.
I also think, though, the world should have a place for women who don't have men to support them. I
Yeah.
mean, there's lots of wicked men. I'm sorry. And there's lots of women who are abandoned. There's lots of women who are abused. There's lots of women who don't have a choice. They don't have a loving
Yes.
father. They don't have a loving husband. They don't have brothers. They don't have nobody. They should be able to live, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I have a question kind of about that because when I was trying to formulate the questions, I was thinking of all these things too. Because I was like, so there's people online who will attack me and be like, oh, well, she used to be a single mom. And they'll like make fun of my husband and be like, you're raising some other dude's kids. You're a cuck. You know what I mean? And he's like, okay, her ex-husband like abandoned her when she was 22 years old, so now she's just shit forever. Like,
Yeah, now you're chopped liver. Like,
yeah. So it wasn't a situation where I was like, you know what? I just need to find myself and I want to ride the carousel. So I'm going to leave you and take your kids. That's not what happened to me at all. Like, my world was crushed because this person just left
mm-hmm,
when I was pregnant with number two. Okay.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that it's less common nowadays. It used to be more common. It's less common now. Now, the more common situation is the woman voluntarily leaving. So, I get why people just assume that single mom means that, which is why I was going to ask a question that was, do you think single moms, basically, do you think single moms are just damaged goods? Or does it
Absolutely
depend?
not.
Or does it depend?
It depends. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Because look at the Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. For all intents and purposes, she was a single mother. And
And people
Joseph,
thought things about her.
right. And
People
Joseph
thought
had to
things
take
about
that.
Mary. And Joseph came under like heavy criticism from people for being willing to marry her. Yeah.
My heart goes out to anybody who has to do the hardest job in the world by themselves with a broken heart. If they actually were not to blame for that,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the worst position you could find yourself. And to be disparaged online by people who don't even know what it's like teenage boys, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Coon brains and teenage boys and
Yes.
like weirdo red pillars are the ones disparaging single moms, and it's not right. I hate that.
Yeah. I always say, like, I'm like, it depends.
Yeah.
Because if it's the single mom that like broke up her family because her work husband makes her feel sexy, yeah, we can criticize that. That's
Mhm.
wrong. You don't have a right to bust up your family because you're bored or you don't feel sexy around your husband anymore. Just the magic is gone or you need to find yourself. Those are not legitimate reasons for divorce. But if you're a mom who's trying your best in your marriage and trying your best as a mom, and your husband like has an addiction problem, and you're trying to get him help, you've tried to support him, and he just is like going down that rabbit hole and leaves and disappears one day and you can't find him. I have a friend that this happened to her in her 60s. In her
Wow.
60s, she literally woke up one day and her husband was gone. Didn't tell their two kids where he went, didn't tell her where he went. They didn't know if he had died. They didn't know if he was kidnapped. Like it took them 2.5 years to figure out that he had just voluntarily left because he finally messaged one of the kids and was like, I just couldn't do it anymore. He basically had like a midlife crisis himself and just like disappeared.
Wow.
And none of them talked to him to this day.
Dang.
So, and that's rare. That's rare. Okay,
Mhm.
I'll give the opposite side that it's rare. It's much more often that like the common reasons women give for divorce, in my opinion, are not good reasons. It's stuff like we grew apart, or I'm just not feeling the romance anymore, that kind of thing. I don't think that's valid. But there are women who get abandoned. And we've always historically made an exception for women who are abandoned. If your husband leaves and he don't come back for 3 years, well, guess what? The church even would grant you a divorce in that case.
Right. So that's why everyone needs to get in the church, because you have the support system and you have protocols for being abused, and you have like reasons that you can get out of situations with support from your priest and your church, and even a lot of Orthodox church pay widows
Yeah.
a little stipend or whatever.
Yeah, it used to always be the role of the church to take care of widows.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? Oh, throughout history, you would be super screwed if you didn't have a man,
Yeah.
right?
You
Up
literally
until very
would have a hard time
recently,
surviving.
you
Yeah.
yes, you literally would die in the wilderness if you didn't have a son or a husband or an uncle or a dad or, a male family member to take care of you. So we're not trying to go back to like that craziness.
No.
We're in the Messianic age. We're not in age of barbarism where you just die in the dirt if
Yeah.
you are
Well, this
abandoned.
is why I focus on history so much. I know that there are some short attention span people who probably don't want to hear my like 2 hour long informational history videos. That's fine. I understand that. But that's why I'm trying to do more short pieces and stuff like that for people who don't want the long form, like really heavy stuff, because there's just so much historical context to things that so many people don't know on both sides. There's people that think that prior to 1920, women were not allowed to leave the house and couldn't do anything or own anything, couldn't read, all this good. And that's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's also historically wrong that, like, traditionally women just got like put into a forced marriage at 16 and then we're just forced to pop out babies and all this. There's just so many misconceptions about what the history has been like throughout the ages and in different places that's relevant and that matters to the context of stuff. So that's why I focus on that so much. Here's my next question.
Okay.
Do you think that the difference between men and women is strictly biological, but that doesn't really, it's not a meaningful difference? In other words, should women be able to like work on oil rigs and build cell phone towers and repair sewer lines and stuff like that, just like men? Like, do you think women can literally physically do everything men can do, or do you feel like there's inherent biological differences that actually matter?
Uh-huh. Funny because I used to work with my dad a lot, as an electrician, Home Depot dad, right?
Oh yeah.
So, and refurbishing houses, cleaning up, properties, stuff like that. So I have done hard work, like man's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard and it's sweaty, and you go to sleep in your clothes that you used as napkins, and you wake up and you do it all over again, like that kind of hardness. And me and my 70-year-old dad can run circles around a lot of the other people that he hired to do, the men and women to do jobs. So it's not like we can't, but the things that are expected of people just to survive, women especially, is ridiculous. As far as how, like, the bills that you have to pay and just everything that you have to do to have a modern life is way too much.
Yeah, I agree
And
with that.
I don't I don't think, no, women can't physically do all of those things for sure. Nor should they even be expected to try.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to prove that I'm as tough as a guy, because the toughness wears you down. Like it's men, when they do hard things, their muscles grow and they get testosterone and they get bigger. But when you expect all of this physical labor from women, it crushes them.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
And you could tell when a woman has been overworked because she's just like broken, she doesn't look good, she might be like, out of shape, and she doesn't take care of herself. And it's like the people in her life have let her down
Yeah.
by overworking her and not appreciating her. And, I always look to like the husband and the kids, like, you're just sucking on mom way too much and not giving back.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I mean, I talk about that all the time too, about how if you're a mom, that's your job.
yeah,
The whole world shouldn't be like, okay, but that doesn't count. You have to have a whole other career in addition to that. And you have to prove that you can pay all your own bills and be a CEO and be a mom.
yeah,
That we're just one person and there's only 24 hours in a day. And
yeah.
what ends up happening is motherhood becomes this like, I'll get to it if there's some time. Otherwise, like, I'll just outsource it. Which brings me to the next question, which is, do you think it's acceptable? There was a lady from the World Economic Forum that was in the news because she said that her way of balancing the work home life, the motherhood career balance for her was simple. She's just outsourced the care of her children completely. She just hired that out and put all of her time into her career because she felt like just by, birthing them, she had basically done the job. And now some other person can, like, some other lady can get a low wage to like raise her kids. Do you feel like it's acceptable to just outsource motherhood completely? We're not talking about like the mom who has to work because they're like in the area where they're very poor and like the pandemic hit and she has to take a job so they don't lose their house. We're talking about the women who are just like, no, my career must be the priority and I make 200,000 a year, so I'm just going to like hire a nanny, or I'm just going to like voluntarily choose to spend 40 or 50 hours at work every week and see my kids a little bit at night or on the weekends if there's time. How do you feel about that?
No, I think if you're gonna be a mom, just do it. Like make that the priority. Um, I do know lots of moms that work though. So it's not like we're saying you can't do what you love or you can't do what you're good at, you can't do your art or your talents,
Yeah.
but the kids are the first priority and then your job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah.
People will be like, if you're not a feminist, why did you write a book? And
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
well, I wasn't doing this when they were all super little because there was no time. I had like 5 kids that were 11 and under. I had like no time. When I say no time, I literally mean no time. Like
Mhm.
every waking minute for about a decade was nothing but momming.
There's a
And then like
reason.
other family obligations. But now 3 of them are adults, and the 2 that are left at home are a teenager and a pre-teenager, and they're very self-sufficient. And I still do take they still are the priority, but I do have a little bit of time, and in just 6.5 years they're all going to be gone.
Mhm.
And so you do want to start formulating a plan for like, what am I going to do so that I don't literally fall into a horrible depression from empty
Mm.
nest syndrome? Like,
Mhm.
I should probably start, building a little momentum slowly in that direction as my kids are becoming adults.
That's
That's what I
good.
did. It's what I recommend. It's worked great for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that you said, I do think that if you're a mom, that should come first. And traditionally, it always did. And most women, once they have a baby, they would prefer to spend their time raising the baby. I think that we've conditioned people the other way. I think that
Mhm.
when women insist to me that no, like I love my career and I'm no one's gonna take it from me, but I should also get to be a mom. It's like, well, yeah, but what about the kids? It's not
Mhm.
all about you once you have kids. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, there's a reason that motherhood is a salvific action, just like marriage, because it's a huge sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? And that is
Yes.
something you have to be aware of. And even in the times where it feels like it's too hard, like this is saving my soul, literally, by
Yeah.
giving myself to raising these people in a righteous way.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so then this question is Andrea Dworkin, the famous second wave feminist,
Huh.
said that all sexual relations between men and women are rape inherently. Do you think that all relations between men and women are rape?
Negative.
Okay.
No.
I feel like that's an easy one, but you would be shocked how many people. There's a girl I talked to on Twitter who believes in the Dworkin stuff and really thinks that, like, she kind of takes this is why a lot of them like Lilith, because Lilith didn't want to be on the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are, like, the radical feminists really think that that's why a lot of them become separatists or lesbians or something like that, because they believe that for a man to do that with you at all is him subjugating you, that, like, ultimately the act in and of itself, you are being, like, subjugated by them.
Mm-hmm. No, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think women have just as much of a sexual drive as men. But for men, I think it would behoove them to wait until marriage, because then you have that proof of consent. So if you're out there playing the field and you're spraying up the walls like a tomcat, you're going to get accused of all kinds of things from crazy women, because that's who you deal with.
Yes.
Right?
Totally agree.
It would protect you to wait until you're married, because then she's, said in front of all her friends and God that, yes, I consent to this action.
Yeah.
And that would solve a lot of problems, I think, if everybody waited till marriage.
And then my last question is, do you believe in strict egalitarianism, meaning that we have an inherent patriarchy problem until 50% of women own companies, or like 50% of CEOs are women, 50% of the government is women? Like, it just has to be 50-50 down the board in every aspect of society, or the patriarchy has not been stamped out.
No. And like I said at the beginning, I don't think we should have to do all these things. But I do get the push against the patriarchy, because I think this is just a label that a lot of people put on the mess that we have of the New World Order right now. They call it capitalism, or they call it racism, or they call it patriarchy. And what good is a patriarchy if the patriarchs are wicked?
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we try to talk about righteous patriarchs and the way that we should have these things, So yeah, men can be tyrannical and so can women, but 50-50, just like in bills, we shouldn't have to go 50-50 on finances, because we contribute in other ways, right?
Yeah, it's almost like there's different roles for both of the sexes.
Right? But there's so many ways that women contribute that don't even get recognition. Like, all your people doing these amazing things, all the men accomplishing all of this stuff. There's somebody at home cooking for him, washing his chonies, like looking after the babies, making sure, just all of the domestic labor, that is half of it. That's the 50%, right? The finances is his 50%.
Yeah, and it used to be, before, like, feminism became the default, it used to be that a good wife at home was very highly respected. This is what people don't understand, I think. It used to be like, that's why men would fight to the death for, like, a good wife and things like that, is because it was so important to their overall success. And we see people like Jay and Patrick and my husband, like, a lot of the Orthodox guys and stuff will often talk about how they do want a wife, and that it's very important to them that she be a high quality person, because they know and understand this person is going to be really integral to whether I'm successful or not. She could kind of make or break me. Like, if I have a great wife, it's going to make me far more successful, far more motivated. It's going to help me to do better at everything that I do. And if she's not a good wife, then I'm going to be far less successful, because I'm going to be distracted and fighting and dealing with, her being crazy or things like that. It used to be like, having a good wife was being a good wife was a big feather in your cap. It was very highly respected. And That's one of the things I think the younger red pill guys online don't understand, especially when they talk to me. I'm like, maybe you don't know because you're just looking at an avatar, my picture online. I'm old enough to be your mama, okay? I'm the elder lady now. I'm turning 43 next week. I have raised a bunch of humans, okay? I have 3 adult age kids. I'm an elder lady now. I've kind of earned my place to kind of dispense some pearls of wisdom here and there and things like that. Now, that doesn't mean I can tell my husband what he needs to be doing or stuff like that, but it does mean that women younger than me, even young men younger than me, they're supposed to have a certain amount of respect for me. I'm the matriarch of a family. I have raised a bunch of children. I have diligently kept my home. I've done good things in my community. I've contributed to society. I have some wisdom and some years behind me. And so now I'm supposed to have earned a certain level of respect. That was the way things were, okay? It wasn't like back in the day before feminism, we just discarded women once they were past childbearing years. It wasn't like that at all. Women, like older women, held this really cherished place in.
Rachel's frozen. Oh no. Are you coming back? Don't freeze. Come back, Rachel. We're going to talk about Barbie. If you come back to us. Oh man. Okay, she's back.
Sorry, don't know what happened. Technical difficulty. I was just saying that people don't think about there's this whole other half of life after you're done having kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it matters too, and you have to think about that sort of stuff. So, like, there's a reason people used to say, like, respect your elders, and that wasn't just the men, it was the women too. So,
I feel like, yeah, a lot of women become invisible at a certain age because they're not sexually attracted to men anymore. So in men's minds, they're just extras, they're NPCs or whatever.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of wisdom, like you said, to give. We've had a lot of experience. We've had lived lives. We've read a lot of books. We have things to say. I'm thinking of like Lady Grantham. Did you ever watch Downton Abbey?
No, I should though, because everybody
Okay.
talks about it and then I'm always out of the loop.
I can't wait to get old and gray because then I can be sassy. Right? Now I still have estrogen in me, so I have to be sweet. But when that's all gone, I'm going to be the sassy queen.
I feel like I'm already getting there.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm already the battle hardened like mom that's seen some stuff. I'm like, I've been through some hard times, man.
Have
And
you
so
heard?
I do get kind of I do have a lower threshold for people's funny business as I get older because I'm like,
Right.
you don't know. And I understand they're young and that's why they don't know. But yeah, there's a lot to be said. Like my grandmas were the people that raised me, and I had so much respect for my grandmas, and I loved my grandmas. And they both grew up during the Great Depression, and they went through World War II and Vietnam. Like they saw some stuff, man, and they had a lot of wisdom to impart, and they were like really central to my childhood and me growing up. So, but that's one of the reasons I tell women don't just focus on a career because then when you get to grandma age, then you don't have anyone and you're alone and you haven't bothered to build a family and a community and a life for yourself, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can't have children, or there's always been a small amount of outliers who are women that just truly aren't necessarily built for motherhood, for psychologically, whatever it is. And that's always been fine too. Those women could be nuns, they could be they could run orphanages, be school teachers, librarians, they could be shopkeepers. There's always been a place for women who weren't mothers, and even those women were respectable as they got older and seen as wise and stuff like that. So there's just a lot more to think about than the one-liners we get from some of the red pill people. A lot of them have come over to my channel and been very thoughtful and really interested in like the intellectual stuff and the historical things and like some of the deeper topics that we get into. So that's been really encouraging. But yeah, if you're just like a person with a frog or an anime as your avatar and you just want to shit all over women, like I just don't really care about you. Like you're not thinking, you're not bothering to think about anything. So I don't, you cannot take me seriously because I don't take you seriously. And then did I ask all my questions? Um, oh, this is the big one, Jamie. You're gonna get in big trouble if you
All
don't get
right,
this
this
one
one
right.
determines if I die alone with cats all over me, or if I'm going to be part of Warren Jeff's harem. What? Okay,
Yes.
visit.
Okay. How do you feel about female politicians?
I think politics and statecraft should be a thing of its own. I honestly don't think everyone deserves a vote because not just women and not just men. I know a lot of men who don't need to be voting either. I
Yeah.
think I honestly think you should have to have like political science classes because does someone deserve a vote just because they have metal genitals? And like if he's a Cheeto, tendy video game guy, does he get to vote over a woman who is like a political science professor? Probably not. Honestly, I think democracy is kind of a scam. And being a politician and a statesman should be its own job almost. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that just because you have an opinion, you should get a vote.
Yes.
In other
Right.
words, yeah.
Opinions are
Everybody's
like
everyone
buttholes.
has a behind
Yeah.
and everyone has an opinion. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you should necessarily be running anything.
Yeah.
So on that one, I mean, I suppose that's kind of like a neutral take, but I would say that overall, you're probably like, I'd say you're like 75 to 80% not feminist.
Ooh, okay.
Don't
So
you think?
am I
For
in
based on your answers.
homeschool mom territory or
Yeah, I think you're right in there.
NPC at
No,
least?
I don't. Yeah, I think you're somewhere between me and the normie lady.
Okay.
You're closer to me though than the normie lady, don't you think? Because
Yeah.
the normie lady would have probably wanted to be more like, no, women have to have, like, when you say we shouldn't have to be doing everything, like that's not necessarily for us. Like, why should women have to be construction workers, or why should women have to pay half the bills?
Mhm.
That doesn't work out if we're going to be moms. It doesn't work out if we're going to be doing wife stuff. Like,
Right. It doesn't even work out with our biology. Like we shouldn't be expected to have 9 to 5s because we are menstruating for like a week out of the month. We shouldn't have to show up even if we're sick
yeah,
and do the jobs that a man can do very easily because his cycle is a lot
yeah,
more
like a
regimented than ours.
24-hour thing that you
Yeah.
said before. Yeah, exactly. So like you recognize the biological differences, because I've debated numerous women now who tell me there's no difference. I just have boobs. So what? I just have boobs. That's it. There's no difference. Otherwise, I'm exactly like a dude. And I'm like, no, you're not. And but that again is like conditioning. They've heard that so much that they actually have started to believe that. And my 14-year-old will have like days right before her period where she's just like crying for no reason, and she's like, I can't imagine having to go to a job and tell my boss that I'm crying because I'm about to get my period.
Exactly.
Just like, and it's not a silly thing. And this is one of the other things that I hate about feminism is it tells women that like we're supposed to be like men, like we're supposed to be stoic. I am not like my husband like that. Like things make me upset. Like there's been a couple of debates. Like there was a debate where one of our good friends like took a massive L and didn't have a good debate. And I went in the bathroom and cried because I was just like upset for my friend. And Andrew was like, what's the big deal? It's just a debate. He'll be fine. And I'm like, I feel bad though. Like
I know.
we are just different hormonally and emotionally. We have different sensibilities. And yeah, so I
But
totally
I
agree
can't
with you.
tell you how many times like I'm upset and Jay's like, why do you care? And I'm like, because I care. I don't know. Like it's the estrogen. I just care too much. I wish I could be like not caring, but we need that too because you don't want someone who's super emotional and empathetic, let's say, to do a surgery on you or something. You want someone who's kind of detached
Yeah.
and right to do
Yeah.
the jobs that require detachment, right?
Yeah.
And women are not good at that. Now, I'm not saying they're not smart. I'm not saying they're not clever. I'm not saying they can't do math or engineering or anything like that. Like science, I mean, women are incredibly intelligent.
Yeah. Well, and this is the other thing that people don't get is it's like I always say this when we're discussing like, okay, why do men do the vast majority of infrastructure jobs? The men will the like red pill dudes will be like, it's because you can't. And then the feminists will be like, it's because the patriarchy won't let you. And I'm like, or it could be that we don't want to because we're just not very interested in that. Aside
Exactly.
from the fact of whether we technically can do it. Okay, like I'm physically very strong for a woman. I can move really heavy things. But do I want to like as a job all day long? Absolutely not. I don't.
No.
I don't want to. My husband used to have a job as a mechanical engineer in this giant food production facility where he would have to go down into tiny spaces that were barely bigger than him, like really far down, where he'd have to wear like a gas mask. And it was like a situation where if anything went wrong, he was going to die. And he
Mm-hmm.
could go there and do that every day for years. And I would like the psychological stress of that. Nope. Don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to. Like, could I technically do it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but that's like not even important compared to the fact that I have no interest in that and I don't want to. And
Right.
that's why 100 years after women's liberation, we see women doing the same jobs overall that they've done for the last 100 years. They still want to do stuff like be a teacher, be a retail worker, be a hairstylist, be a secretary, be a child care person or a nurse. Like there's just things that we prefer as
Mm-hmm.
women. And I
Mm-hmm.
do think you're right about the fact that feminism is actually kind of like it's kind of messed up for feminists to try to force that stuff on us and be like, you have to go into a STEM field, you have to. And it's like, but I don't want to. I want to do artistic stuff. That was
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I know I'm really smart, but I like painting and I like music and I like kids and I like animals and like I first started to really resent feminism because I felt like they were constantly trying to beat the femininity out of me. And I
Mm.
was like, why? Why am I not just good enough to like be a mom and be a really good painter and play 5 different instruments? How come that's not good enough? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's kind of like a tyrannical form of feminism to try to force women to act like men when that's not what most of us want to do.
And a lot of people talk about, there's no space for masculine men anymore. There's also not a lot of reward for feminine women.
No, we get trashed on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But women,
we get ripped on by a lot of the other women. I mean, I'm going to do a stream coming up soon where I read all my hate mail and my mean tweets and the
oh
mean
no.
comments I get.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And most of them are things like that. Most of them are like, oh, you're just like this because you can't hack it in the career world and you were too stupid to go to college and you're not good enough to be a career woman. And it's like, okay, hold on. That's why I like to debate them because it's like if you think I chose this because I'm just lazy and stupid and didn't have any other options, like I just wasn't good enough to be a career woman.
Hey, Rachel, you're smart
Yeah.
enough to be a doctor, right? Your grandma always said.
My grandma always tells everybody that my 8th grade science teacher said I should be a doctor. She does. She
You
tells
are
everybody.
smart enough.
Well, my dad was telling a story on the 4th of July. We had a big get together. My dad was telling everybody a story about how when we took the standardized testing in high school, they wrote him a letter saying that they thought I cheated because I got a perfect score on the math section. And that doesn't happen very often. So I had to retake it like supervised, like with literally a person standing over me
Mm-hmm.
because they thought I cheated. And my dad loves to tell everybody that story. So it's like, yeah, I'm very smart, but that doesn't mean that I want to like go be a nuclear physicist. I want to be a mama and I love baby animals and precious babies. And I'm just like, I'm a very nurturing person. And I always felt very resentful that I felt like I was being pushed and forced to do something because people thought I could. I'm like, but what about what I want? What about
Mm-hmm.
what I want to do?
Well, don't you think it's pretty smart to try and find a loving partner that makes your life easier.
Yeah, I do.
That's pretty
And I
smart.
some of my best friends from high school that went to college and I didn't, they would say stuff to me when we get back together. They'd be like, "Oh, it's such a shame you never did anything with all your potential." And I'm like, I
Oh,
raised five amazing humans. Like,
yeah.
why is that not enough? So
Yeah.
yeah. So no, I think the verdict is that Jamie's not a feminist. If Jamie was a feminist, she would be sitting here telling us that men and women are the same, that we need to have lady presidents, and that if we don't have an equal number of women in STEM, and she would be talking about the patriarchy is the reason why we think we want to be girls, but we really don't want to be girls. That's just the patriarchy telling us that. And I'm sure that will come up in our analysis of the Barbie movie.
Yes. So I am bona fide, based, and
Yes.
non-feminist, right?
Yes. You have my based homeschool mom stamp of approval.
Good. And there's two big stories in the news right now. One is Ariana Grande stole somebody's husband.
Yeah.
You heard about that?
Yeah.
So
And
the
I saw
women are
pictures and
turning
I'm
on
like,
her.
maybe
Yeah.
I'm just really shallow, but I like cute boys. She keeps chasing the most weird looking guys.
This guy is way out of his league. He has just made the biggest mistake of his entire life by leaving his
No.
high school sweetheart with a
And she was
baby.
cute.
Yeah.
His ex was a cute girl. And I'm like,
So that is pick me behavior. Stealing other people's husbands is terrible, pick me clownish, because what do you want with a disloyal man anyways? What good is that? If he does it to her, he's going to do it to you. So Ariana,
yep.
she is not on the girls team right now.
Yeah, that's I do dunk on those girls quite a bit because they're the ones who they want a man that is taken on purpose because it makes them feel like really powerful to be able to like steal a man from another woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the guy cheats on her, like leaves her for someone else, or they catch him cheating, they're shocked. They're like, they act like, how could he? And it's like, well, you were the other woman first. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, the way you got him is the way you're gonna lose him. And the second huge news story is aliens. So the government has come out and said, we've got the aliens, we've got an alien dude, we've got the spaceships, and nobody gives a crap. Like we would rather talk about Barbie, and everyone's like, aliens, okay, well, are they going to do something about the interest rates? I don't think so. Are they going to do something about student loans or like my rent? And if the answer is no, we do not give one flying F about an alien. And this is all psyop anyway. So I just thought that people would rather talk about Barbie than the government coming out and saying aliens are real. So we're
that's
going to
like a huge, that's a pretty huge W, really, when you think about it, because they've been holding that card in their back pocket for what,
right?
7 years or something. Yeah. And everybody's just like, yeah, okay, but the Fed raised the interest rate.
Yeah.
This is a problem. And why are we doing another war? And, like, why is the supply chain still not fixed? And there's still like half the places around me are still never open because they don't have employees.
Mm-hmm.
The labor shortage. Like, there's serious things. People can't even live right now. And it's like, I don't know if it was the delivery or what, but yeah, everybody's just kind of like, oh, yeah.
So aliens is a big nothing burger and Barbie is a hit. So let's get into it because I don't know if you knew this, but my husband is the best movie analyst in the world of all time, right?
It's
Yeah.
that James Dryer guy, right?
Yes.
Isn't that who he is?
And together we are unstoppable force of nature, and we watched Barbie, and I have a whole 2 pages of notes. So
I took a ton of notes on my phone in the theater.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, this starts off 2001, right? It looks like 2001 Space Odyssey, and I talk about this a lot in my live talk that you have come to called All Seeing AI. And in the beginning of 2001, the monolith comes down, and the monolith is a representation of something that comes and brings mankind to another leap in evolution, right? It's a quantum leap in our development, and Barbie comes down as the monolith, and it's like the little girls were playing with babies and they were, being loving
Cuddling
moms.
them.
Here
Mhm.
comes Barbie, and she smashes this paradigm, and then the girls are smashing the babies' heads against the rocks, and they're throwing it up in the air like the bone from 2001. And I also found this, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know if you knew this, but Barbie, I wrote about this in my very first book, which is not for sale anymore. But Barbie is based on a German doll called Build Lily. Have you heard of that?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay. So Build Lily was, let me get this perfectly right. 1940s German cartoon character created for a magazine called Bild Zeitung. She was a post-war gold-digging buxom broad who got by in life by seducing wealthy male suitors. She was famously quick-witted and known to talk back when it came to male authority, so she's always been a feminist.
Mhm.
And then I have some pictures here of the Build Lily doll. So it's a post, or it's a she was a high-end German call girl, and the doll was a gag gift, like we have blow-up dolls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was the first Barbie doll, was
Whoa, I didn't know
gag
that.
gifts based on this German cartoon.
Huh. Didn't know that. They didn't talk about that in the movie. They just
No.
talked about the lady who created Barbie here in the US.
Lily.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
Build Lily is the Barbie prototype, and then the lady Ruth Handler saw that, and she's like, light bulb moment. She took it home in the 1950s, and Barbie premiered in 1959, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I noticed that opening sequence with the little girls smashing the babies. To me, I put in my notes, I was like, opens instantly with an antinatalist tone
Mm-hmm.
where the little girls are like, oh, we don't want to be mommies anymore. We want to be sexy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to
Mm-hmm.
be independent and sexy and not be mommies. So we're going to smash the babies. I was like, we're smashing the babies.
Yeah. She like
So
literally dashing their heads against the rocks, like some kind of weird sacrifice.
yeah,
And so she comes down and she looks like the fertility goddess,
yeah.
like your
Mhm.
Inanna, Ishtar, sex goddess.
Yep.
And she's the monolith, which is super esoteric and meaningful. You guys can dive into that later. But yeah, so Barbie is the something inserted to cause a quantum leap in evolution for women.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So it starts with that, and then it goes to Barbie waking up in her Barbie dream house in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Lizzo song, of course, that Lizzo sings this song called Pink that opens the movie, and it describes Barbie going about her day. And so I put in my notes that she immediately, we see she has her own house. She wakes up alone in her own bed in her own house. She has her own money. It even says in the song, like, she has her own money, her own car, her own career,
Yeah. Money,
everything.
house, car, career. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, like, I mean, we just did this quiz and figured out that Jamie's not a feminist because she didn't say, I need my own money, my own house, my own car, my own career. And Jamie's like, I've said this before about you, but it's totally true. Jamie is like a very, whereas I can be sassy and rough around the edges and kind of a pain in the ass sometimes, Jamie is like graceful. She's like the classically feminine, her voice, my voice can get shrill and irritating and annoying to listen to. Jamie has like a soothing voice and a soothing quality about her, and in real life she's like a very sweet, nurturing, graceful, very feminine lady.
Oh.
So to me, none of that's feminist at all. That's not feminist. And because in order to be feminist, you have to be trying to prove that you can do anything boys can do, and these gender roles aren't going to hold me back, and I'm not a stereotypical woman, and I don't have any use for being soft and feminine and graceful. I want to be tough and be the boss. And the thing about Barbie in these opening sequences is like she is cute and sexy, and her hair's always perfect and she always looks perfect and her outfit changes like every scene. But she, like, everybody's, everywhere she goes is looking at her, all the attention is on her and everyone's saying hi to her, and she just walks around saying hi to everybody and everyone's like, hi Barbie. She has to be the center of attention.
Good
And
point.
to me the thing I notice in all the feminists that I talk to online all the time is it's like the reason they want to do OnlyFans, the reason they want to be Instagram models, the reason they want to go on the whatever podcast or this podcast, they want to be the center of attention. Everybody look at me. And it's very much this idea of like, everyone has to be paying attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I get my self-worth from clicks and likes and eyeballs on me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
so like the whole opening sequence is just everyone pays attention. She literally floats down from her roof into her car.
Right. Oh, here's one thing. Two things I wanted to say. Helen Mirren was the narrator at the beginning, and she's in my suspect book for being a Grand Witch of Hollywood.
Ooh.
And recently there was somebody who caught her and Lady Gaga doing this to each other very meaningfully. Did you see that?
No.
At a red carpet. So they both like did this and oh yeah, you, okay. It was a very like
Really?
hail Satan moment. Yeah.
Yikes.
So Helen Mirren, motherhood is slavery. They're saying Barbie changes all this. She has her own money, house, car, career. The song by Lizzo, women can achieve anything, feminism. But this movie is also Gnostic. And I don't think that a lot of people are going to understand this because almost every movie that we analyze is like some kind of Gnostic theme.
Yeah, maybe I was going to actually ask you why Gnosticism of all of the things Hollywood could pick, why is Gnosticism like their favorite way to look at the world?
I guess just because it's an inversion of Christianity, like it's a false simulacra of the gospel.
Yeah.
The Gnostic gospels. So you're gonna notice that the things aren't real. Like she tries to take a shower and the water's not real. She has breakfast and it's fake. Like you said, she floats down so she can fly. And then she says hi to her neighbor Midge, the pregnant Barbie, and they even disparage Midge for being pregnant. They're like, she's weird and we don't play with her because she's
Yeah,
pregnant
we
too.
discontinued Midge because everyone agreed that a pregnant Barbie was just too weird. And I'm like,
Right.
Again
So
with the anti-motherhood stuff, just
and this brings us back to the surrogates because you don't want to lose your figure, and the down the road, the Brave New World, the pods that are going to grow babies instead of women, right?
Yep.
So this is all on track to transhumanism, Brave New World, Matrix pods, right?
Yep.
Oh, there's a pink White House and a women president and women judges and women politicians. That sounds terrifying.
I know. They were like, they have the female president and then a all-female Supreme Court, which later in the movie, when the Kens take over, I think one of them asks if he can be on the Supreme Court, and they're like, no.
Right.
And I thought to myself, I put in my notes, it would be because of the Abobo thing, right? Like, I think they had to sneak this in because of what happened with the Roe versus Wade being overturned. I think that was their little nod to like, we're never gonna let a man on the Supreme Court ever again. We want an all-female Supreme Court.
Hey, I've been in the working world and I've had male bosses and female bosses, and they're equally terrifying. Okay. They're equally intimidating and equally like, don't mess with them and don't upset them. So it's not easier to work for women in any case.
No, absolutely not. Well, it might have been different for me because I was in the beauty industry. So I had mostly female bosses my whole life. And like the two male bosses I can think of that I ever had were tough and intimidating, but they were at least like more rational. Like with them, I could figure out how I could win and stay out of trouble. With the female bosses, I never did figure that out. I could never figure that out because it depended like, and the other thing, they were always having an affair with somebody at work.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just a beauty industry thing. It very well could be because the beauty industry attracts the most crazy like party girl type of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it was for me. Like all my bosses were like having affairs, secretly drinking. Like they were pretty unhinged. And I do think it, if I had been in just like an office, it probably wouldn't have been that problem. It would have been other problems. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had crazy female bosses for sure.
But oh, so there's also female pilots, female astronauts. And here's the other, like, astronaut is a bullshit job anyways.
It's basically just actor.
Yeah. So here's another case where we're totally arguing about the way wrong thing, and you know, it doesn't even matter the
Yeah,
thing that you're arguing about because astronaut is not even a real thing. So
right. Yeah, and this is the part of the movie where I wrote this down because the narrator says, because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything.
mhm.
And when I think of women can be anything, I think of the transformer situation.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
think of,
So a
I
woman
think
can be a
of,
man.
yeah. And they put one of those in the movie.
Several.
Was there several? I only noticed the one with
There
the
was a
red hair, but
couple at
I'm
least.
really bad at spotting them, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So
Sometimes I do okay, but a lot of times I miss it.
yeah, so Barbie is the center of attention. Barbie is also a tulpa. Did you notice that?
No.
So
I did a
when
whole bunch of reading about tulpas like a year ago, though. I have
uh-huh.
like a whole folder on my computer about them because it's so weird.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So
Okay.
she goes to the beach to meet Ken, and Ken only wants Barbie to look at him. So they're
Yeah.
saying men only do things for attention,
Yeah.
and they only do things for female adoration, right?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that matters to them.
The portrayal of men in this movie, I took my 11 and 14-year-old with me, and that was the very first thing that they both picked up on. I don't know if it's because, they have their dad around all the time and they see their dad as this really competent, really smart, awesome, capable guy. But they were like, why were all the men just basically like NPC clones that totally don't matter and
Mm-hmm.
don't do anything? I didn't think they would get that. I was surprised that the main takeaway my daughters had was, what's up with the portrayal of the men in this movie? Like, why are the men such afterthought pieces of crap in this whole movie? But yeah, it
Well,
says, like, the narrator says basically like every day for Barbie is a good day, but Ken only has a good day if Barbie says hello to him or looks at him or whatever.
right. And so you'll notice there's no Ken astronaut or Ken pilot or Ken doctor or he's just Ken, right? He's
Yeah.
just the
There's
accessory.
literally a song he
Yeah.
sings called I'm Just Ken.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm Kenuff.
Yeah, I'm Knuff.
I'm just Ken and I'm Kenuff.
Well, when they're on the beach, there is like this argument. It's a it's a homoerotic thing. Do you
That was
see
the
that?
other thing. There was a lot of that.
And they're like, I don't know if they were saying beach you off or beat you off. He's like, I'll beat you off. No,
They
I'll
were
beat you off.
saying beat you off,
Oh, beach. Uh-huh.
but everybody in the theater, because I went and saw it in the theater, and everybody was cracking up laughing because it sounded like, I'll beat you off right now. I'll beach off every guy on this beach, and like,
Yeah.
and I didn't even get the joke really. I was like, beach off? What? I felt old. I was like, am I not getting the joke? And my kids just kind of like shrugged at me like, oh.
I think it was meant to be a dirty joke. Like,
Yeah, I think it was, but it didn't, to me, it like didn't move the plot forward or make any sense the way they inserted it. So I was just like, okay.
so Barbie is having an existential crisis. The Margot
Yes.
Robbie Bobby.
Yep, that's what I put in here, that Barbie starts having an existential crisis later at the party.
And that's why I think she's a tulpa, because she has to find the girl that she's linked to that plays with her in the real world. So, and
Yeah.
that's like how we create tulpas in the imaginary realm.
Yeah.
So Barbie is
Makes
taking
sense.
things from Indian philosophy and Gnosticism, feminism. I didn't think it would be that deep, and I don't think a lot of people are going to get these concepts from the movie. I'm sure a lot of the pundits that
Probably
have
not.
reviewed this movie did not think Barbie was a tulpa and
Probably not,
Gnostic
but
tale.
you're totally right that she is.
Yeah.
And there's a little snippet when they're showing all the amazing Barbie women in Barbie land and the amazing things they can all do, and they're giving each other Nobel Prizes, one of them gives a speech about logic and emotion and democracy versus plutocracy and all this stuff. And I'm like, to me, that was like just such an over the top way of trying to sneak this in there. Like now women are all philosophy major political science people who just want to talk about like we can't just have logic or emotion, we have to have both, and that's the difference between a democracy and a plutocracy. And then everybody like claps and everything, and I was just
Right.
like,
As if Margot Robbie even knew what she was saying in her lines. Oh,
yeah.
and then do you remember last week everyone was having a tizzy because some guy posted that Margot Robbie is mid?
Yes, that was everywhere on Twitter for like days. I even put on my Twitter, I was like, my whole timeline is just, it was like two things, and I forget now what the other thing was. But it was one thing, and then whether Margot Robbie is mid. And now watching the movie, I thought she was beautiful, and I thought she looked just like a Barbie.
Yeah.
But
She's objectively beautiful. Like she's nobody can say that she's not. This is coon brain stuff.
yeah,
Hey, saying
well, I it
beautiful women are
seemed
mid.
yeah, it seemed like the men thought she wasn't sexy enough. Like she should have been sexier. Like they thought when they think Barbie, they're thinking like blow up doll or like the absurd video game characters or anime characters where their boobs are bigger than their head, but their waist is like this small.
Yeah.
But I mean, Margot Robbie, like in pictures, I was like, oh, she's pretty. But in the film, like watching her walk around and stuff, I was like, okay, she's like,
I mean, if that's
drop
mid,
dead
then I
knockout,
don't have a
gorgeous.
chance. Nobody has a chance. This is ridiculous. And did you see the guy that said that? Like, somebody put a picture of him up, and it's like, oh man.
I think it was most of those. But I was like, the other thing about that is, and this is women do this too. Women play into this trap and fall into this trap. By definition, most of us are average. Like
Mhm.
I've said, like Allie Drummond and I make jokes all the time on Twitter about how she calls herself an adjustable six. And she's like, I'm going to start a club of mid women. Reply with adjustable six if you want to join. And I like posted a picture, like a selfie of myself. And I was like, I'm applying because I'm an I'm not saying anything bad about myself. I'm not dunking on my own looks. I'm just saying like I'm an average, nice looking lady, I guess. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm a very like stereotypical normal American lady.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's most of us. Most men are average and most women are average. And I
That's why
feel
it's
like
called average.
I know that's how averages work, everybody.
Yeah.
But that's why I just feel like now this is why we have all these girls, like you've seen the dating shows where they all go, I'm a 10. Like they ask them to rate themselves, and every single time, every single one of them will say they're a 10,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're completely obviously not a 10. That's cringe and silly. And not all of us are models, and that's fine. You don't have to be a model.
Mm-hmm.
You still have worth as a human, and you're fine.
There,
So it's
there's
just such a
things,
weird thing with younger girls now. They all think they have to be a 10 or they're a 0. They're like Ricky Bobby, like if you're not first or last.
yeah. And there's things you can do even as an average woman to like add a couple points, like you
Yeah.
said. Uh, just having long hair,
Yeah.
looking clean, wearing
Yeah.
feminine clothes, like brushing it and having clean skin. It's just like
Yeah.
very basic. Wear a
Yeah.
dress. A dress
Well,
will put you like at least 1.5 points up of
yeah.
what you are.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, that's why if I look at pictures of my grandma in the 40s and 50s, she has all these pictures of herself, and we're like, whoa, grandma was a knockout. But if you like pay attention, it's just because like everybody dressed up more. We weren't sweatpants culture. Everybody didn't go out in their pajama pants and like an ill-fitting 5 sizes too large dirty t-shirt with their hair. And the way girls will walk around in public right now with just like mascara under their eye, they'd be looking like Britney Spears doing her twirly dance with mascara under here, and like their hair's in a bun that's like falling out, and they just look homeless.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a thing. Like when my grandma was growing up, you put on it your going out of the house clothes, and you looked, and even in the house, like she would
You had
put
house
on a nice
dresses.
outfit. Yeah. So and she put on her lipstick and she had her hair done. And so like my kids were like, every picture of grandma, she looks amazing. And I'm like, well, it's because people, and grandma had time. That's the other thing. She wasn't doing the rat race. She didn't have an hour commute each way and, a full-time job and all that stuff. So she could get up in the morning and get herself put together before going about her day and doing stuff. And
I
yeah,
call
just
my
things
grandma Glamma because she was always like glammed out to the
yeah.
nines.
Yeah, my mom's grandma was that way. She would not come out of her room without like her makeup and her jewelry and her hair done and a nice outfit. And she usually would have a highball too, but that's a whole different story. But she was fun. She was like a hot party grandma. But she was cool.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So Barbie's having an existential crisis. She's thinking about dying because the person in the real world who plays with her is having these thoughts.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And this is the fallen. So when she gets up, she can't fly anymore. Her world is soiled. Her food is not right. Like everything is messed up, basically.
Yeah. Her hair isn't quite as perfect.
Right.
It's just like everything's not quite perfect anymore. And then she discovers a little bit of cellulite on her thigh, and her feet are no longer pointy like they're permanently in high heels. Her feet become flat. Yeah. And when they showed so many close-up feet shots of Margot Robbie that I was like, I feel like the Nickelodeon producers got in here and did their little foot fetish thing. I know it was part of the plot, so at least there was a point to it, but there was so many up close shots of her feet that I was like, the foot fetish guys are gonna love this movie.
Oh yeah, they're gonna go crazy for that. So now Jay made a really good point. He said Barbie's life is how a kid thinks life should be.
Yeah, that's true.
If you asked a child what would your dream day be, you're gonna get Barbie's day, right?
Yeah. You get up, you have breakfast, you drive in your cool convertible pink car to the beach, and you spend your whole day at the beach with your friends, and then you have a party all night long.
Yeah. A girls' night.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And at the party, she all of a sudden goes, do you guys ever think about dying? And the whole party stops and they all just look at her. And then she like takes it back kind of, and they're like, whew, and they go back to partying.
Right.
But yeah. Oh, and there's a moment before she wakes up the next day and things aren't right. After the party, Ken wants to hang out with her, and he's like, he wants to be with her. And she's like, tonight is girl night. And he's like, well, what about tomorrow? And she's like, every night is girl night forever. And she doesn't want him. And he's like super sad. This part of the movie, I'll get into it more when we get further towards the end, but this part made me so sad because Ken really loves Barbie and she just friend zones him and takes him for granted, which she does apologize for later. But anyways, it was just sad because he was like, well, but I love you and I want to spend time with you. And she was like, sorry, it's girls' night every night forever. Yeah. I was just like, who wants that?
Right.
I like my girlfriends, but I don't want every night to be girls' night and like never have one. I just feel like one of the big messages of the movie was just like men are so disposable. They're totally uninteresting. They're completely not important. And like you said, they're just an accessory that you can like have if you want.
Or a annoyance like Ryan Gosling was to her. Like she didn't want to be around him.
No, and that made me sad.
Poor Ken. So Barbie's death caused imperfections in her world. She's now fallen, so she has to go visit Weird Barbie, who's kind of like the oracle of the Barbie world.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a portal between the Barbie world and the real world, and the realness is leaking in because of Barbie's thoughts.
Yeah.
So this is very Gnostic.
Yeah.
We live in the hell world because our creator was imperfect and he's trying to imprison us in these flesh prisons, right? That's the Gnostic view of it. And we can break out of this with enlightenment, Gnostic enlightenment. So now Barbie has to close the rift by going into the real world and finding the real girl that plays with her.
Yes.
And they say restoring the membrane that separates our world from them so you don't get cellulite. Did you see that sign? Like it was like, "Good luck, Barbie, on restoring the membrane."
Yeah, and it was like no more cellulite or
Yeah.
whatever on the sign. Um,
Poor women in
well,
the
and
limelight.
of course, a movie about Barbie. They're gonna talk about. They make several references to Barbie making girls feel bad about themselves because
Mm,
Barbie has this unattainable body and things like that. And honestly, I just am so tired of the body image wars and women, just this whole idea that we can't maintain a reasonable body weight or something, or
yeah.
that men are the ones that are putting the extreme expectations. I know there are some men who do that, but I've dated a bunch of guys, I've known a bunch of guys. I'm 43, like I said. Normally, I feel like it's the women who put all the pressure on themselves. And my 11-year-old said this. She was like, Mom, I feel like girls are the ones that put the weird stuff on themselves. And like, boys don't care that much. Boys are like, if you look kind of cute and you're a girl, they're pretty happy about it. And I was like, yeah, I feel like that too. I feel like women are the ones that we're competing for mates, and we put a lot of the pressure on each other about looks. And like, this because when you're in junior high and high school, the people who tease you about your looks and call you fat or make fun of your clothes are usually the girls.
Mm,
At least for me, it was like, like a girl who didn't like you would be like, oh, she's fat.
hmm.
Everybody on Twitter who doesn't like me, all the women who hate me, make sure to call me fat. They're feminists, mind you. They're
Right.
supposed to be like feminists, and all they do is insult my looks and call me fat. So,
You know what I didn't understand is why all the feminists hated Melania Trump. She never did anything wrong. She looked
no.
elegant all the time. She always was very well spoken and like polite. She played first lady perfectly. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I love Trump or any, I'm just saying the feminists hated her for no reason. And I was like,
Yeah.
where's the solidarity, guys? Like,
Yeah, and they would make fun of her accent. And I would be like, wait a minute, aren't you the same people that are constantly mad about racism? And now you're teasing an immigrant for her having an accent? This woman knew 5 languages.
right.
And they would call her dumb, unaccomplished. She has like a master's degree or something. Yeah, she's a very accomplished person, but you're right. They
Yeah.
absolutely hated her.
They all
And then
simp for Michelle Obama, who's not even a woman,
based. But
and
no, you're
hate
right.
Melania
Like,
Trump.
well, and Michelle would come out in some outfit that was objectively hideous, and all the women would pretend it was the coolest outfit they've ever seen. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
I'm like, women don't have shoulders like that. I'm sorry. Anyways,
No.
so she has to go to the real world. The Barbies think real women should be grateful. So yeah, like you were saying, the Barbies don't understand why the real women have body issues because of them.
Yeah.
And they think that they should be grateful for their
Oh, you know what? There's something else we missed when she goes to see weird Barbie, who's always stuck in the splits, which is true. All of us that had a Barbie growing up, you would take your Barbie by the foot and whip her up in the air, and she'd be stuck in the splits.
yeah.
So I did think that was kind of funny. But she gives her a red pill and a blue pill choice, like a
Uh-huh.
matrix thing. She holds up one shoe and another shoe. And
Yeah.
I don't know what if they nodded to the Matrix because of the
There was
Gnostic thing
a
that you're
couple nods to the
referring to.
Matrix.
Yeah. So like I just thought I would point out that she's like, you can either choose this shoe, which, what which you have to go into the real world,
Uh-huh.
like the Matrix, or you can, and Barbie doesn't get it and she has to explain it and it ruins the analogy. But I was like, that's definitely a Matrix reference, which is a Gnosticism reference for sure.
Yeah. So
And
she's got the Birkenstock and the high heel, and she doesn't want to take the red pill of the Birkenstock and go to the real world.
And then I thought it was kind of weird. I don't know if there was anything into this, if I'm reading too much into it, but the weird Barbie said when she brought up Ken, the weird Barbie was like, I'd love to see what kind of nude blob he has under his jeans. And I was just like, I don't know if why is the weird Barbie the only one that thinks Ken is hot?
Oh, good point. Right.
All the other Barbies, just like, all these dudes are walking around looking absolutely perfect. And
Uh-huh.
the Barbies like don't even notice.
Right.
But
Because
the
they're
weird
busy with
Barbie
their
was
job.
like, let me check out his nude blob, which was kind of a funny joke, but I didn't know if there was a reason why Weird Barbie
Hmm.
seems to have sexuality when the other Barbies don't. I don't know.
Yeah, so they don't have genitals. That's Gnostic too. When they get to the real world, Ken likes the attention and
Yeah.
Barbie doesn't,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then they're even playing the music from 2001, the Thus Spake Zarathustra.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Bum, bum,
Yep.
bum,
And
bum.
there's another thing too, when Barbie is leaving town to go to the real world and Ken sneaks away, there's that moment where he pops up in the back seat and she gets scared.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" She goes, "You're just gonna slow me down."
Exactly.
And I was like, "Oh my God, here we go again with Barbie is strong and independent and competent and can do everything. And Ken's just gonna slow her down. A
Right.
man just slows you down in life, ladies. They're just dead weight."
Yeah. And this is a lot like Lego Movie. And Will Ferrell is also in it, and he plays the president of Mattel, or the demiurge creator,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he
Mm-hmm.
controls the world of children's imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And Mattel is all men board members, like Agent Smiths
Yep.
and the Archons, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have in here that Ken loves being ogled and Barbie doesn't.
Hmm.
And I mean, they do go a little over the top with the, I don't feel like any, this might have been different in the 80s or 90s, but now I don't feel like if a hot chick's walking down the road that dudes just walk up to her and slap her on the bum. Don't really feel like that happens anymore, but in the
Not in
movie,
America, I don't
yeah.
think.
Oh, and then she goes, "I don't have a vagina." And they're like, "That's fine." Like, we don't care. I was just like, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
um, so they talk about how the imagination makes the alternate dimensions, right?
Yeah.
In Mattel. And Barbie is the archetype of the rampant consumerism. And they talk about fascist Barbie. And the Barbie standards damaging women, is what the little girl says, the Gen Z
Mhm.
girl,
Yeah.
right? Um, and Barbie is an avatar of little girls.
Yes.
So it's not just Gnostic, it's also kind of Hindu-y, right?
Now, was there more significance to the Mattel boardroom? Like, I get that they're all men, and once again, just bashing us over the head with patriarchy, but was there like,
Yeah,
I
it's
couldn't totally figure out Will Ferrell's character, and maybe you know
he's
more about that.
he's the architect, the demiurge, the Yaldabaoth, the
I
creator.
kind of got that, but he was just so weird that I was like not sure what I was supposed to be getting from his character.
Yeah, and their boardroom is like the rainbow throne of the heavens of the creator, right?
Okay.
And this is a lot like Lego Movie. I just said that anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Will Ferrell is architect and Ken is in the real world trying to figure out what a man is and what a man does.
Yeah.
And he thinks that he can do anything just because he's a man. Like he thinks he can read a book and be a doctor or whatever, you
I
know?
know. It was kind of funny how, because he comes from Barbie land where he's nothing and he goes to the real world, which is supposed to be this patriarchy, and he's like, people just respect men for no reason just because they're men. And he sees like all of the money has men on it, and like the policemen are wearing uniforms in there. And what was the thing with horses? Why was he so obsessed with horses?
I don't know. Jay asked me that too. I mean, maybe it's like a masculine thing. Like,
Yeah, because he said horses are just a man extender.
mm-hmm.
I don't know. He said men. He said the patriarchy means that men on horses run everything, which is funny. But
Yeah.
I mean, there were, and to be fair to the movie, there was lots of like funny things about it that were actually like there was some pretty clever writing and some funny moments, and the sets were cool. And it's not like a totally unentertaining movie or anything. It's more just they just really like all the feminists, they can never be subtle. Any of the feminist movies have to like absolutely beat you over the head with patriarchy stuff. But
Yeah.
I didn't know if you like had any. I was like, maybe Jamie knows some weird esoteric stuff about horses, but I can't figure out what the deal is with horses, why they all want to be cowboys and ride horses.
I don't know. Is it like
Or
a phallic thing?
I don't know.
Like
Maybe because
power?
he
I
says
don't know.
horses are men extenders. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Well,
okay.
did you notice that they try to put Barbie back in the box, but they don't care that Ken is running wild in the real
Yeah,
world because Ken is not a threat to their status quo,
right.
right? Only
That's what
Barbie
Barbie
is.
is.
Yeah. So then she meets matriarch Ruth Handler, the creator of Barbie, or the one who took the Bill Lilly doll and made it into Barbie, who was named after her daughter, I think, Barbara,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So she is the Sophia Principle in
I was
Gnosticism.
wondering about that because she has this mysterious 1950s kitchen in the middle of this Mattel high-rise building that she
Mhm.
accidentally stumbles upon where she's just
Mhm.
like making tea. And I was like, I feel like I've seen that in other movies and I couldn't exactly place where it is, but where the character stumbles into some old lady's kitchen where it's like this safe, cozy place, and the old lady has some kind of the
It's the
Matrix
Matrix.
actually.
Yeah. It's when he sees the black lady who makes the cookies and she's the Sophia.
Okay.
So that's
So this is
exactly
the
what,
same thing.
yes.
Okay.
So Barbie is drawing from 2001 Space Odyssey and Matrix very clearly
Yeah.
in several places, right? Two super esoteric Gnostic movies.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, so Ruth is the Sophia Principle and she'll come back at the end. And the little girl says something interesting. She says, everyone hates women. It's the one thing we all agree on. Now,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, you know what? We do have a problem with putting women on a pedestal just to see them get knocked off. Like, there's something in every one of us that likes to see that. Like, even Margot Robbie being called mid is like, haha, no, that's not right. You know,
Yeah.
you have to be
Yeah.
like,
And I mean, the like South Park tackled that with Britney. They did that
yes,
Britney episode where they talked like very explicitly about like what is this weird thing about taking a woman, making her a sex symbol and making her an idol and then smashing her.
yes.
Like what is this obsession that people have with doing that?
It's a very pagan Wicker Man, dog king, like king kill thing. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
you,
where
you
you build up
sacrifice
an
it.
idol to
Yeah.
sacrifice it. Yeah.
So everyone loves to see a beautiful woman like get knocked down a peg or two. It's really sad, but yeah, that's one thing everybody can agree on. They love to see that.
Yeah, there's another little so in the middle of this happening, Ken is exploring and getting excited about the patriarchy and he walks up to some men and kind of asks them like if it's a patriarchy and the guy whispers to him like, "Oh, it's still a patriarchy. We just hide it better."
Mm.
Like we still run everything. We just hide it better. Almost like we just let women think that they're important or whatever.
This made me think of feminism because when we talk about this, guys love to talk about it because it puts the onus back on women. And I'm kind of like, dial it back because just because it's feminism doesn't mean it's run by women or thought up by women or it wasn't created by women for women.
No,
Right.
that's literally what my book is about, which people always miss.
Yeah.
People always miss the part where I'm like, no, basically simps are how you got feminism in the first place because women didn't like I posted on Twitter some quotes from Susan B. Anthony. She wrote The History of Women's Suffrage, which was an homage to herself and how awesome she was. But she put in there that if we had left it up to women, we'd have never had women's liberation because at that point in history, women were very comfortable. She's like, they can go to college if they want, but most of them don't want to. They can do lots of different jobs, but most of them just want to be moms. And, they can do a lot of things, own a lot of things, but they're very comfortable and they're well taken care of and they have pretty cushy lives. And so they had to go to the Bill Gateses and the Elon Musks of the time, the like ultra wealthy revenge of the nerd simp guys to push feminism and like suffrage and all that stuff through.
Mm-hmm.
There was always like wealthy Revenge of the Nerd simps behind it. And yeah, I mean, if you're waiting for women to decide to just reject wholesale feminism, that's not going to happen because the propaganda was created by men. Like, men thought they were going to get free sex and less responsibility
Mm-hmm.
out of this, right? And there's
Mm-hmm.
still a lot of men who do. In fact, the pickup artist guys love feminism.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to not have feminism anymore because it benefits them. They
Yeah.
are the top 1% of guys who figured out how to play the game and be con artists and get the vast majority of the chicks. And then there's 80% of men who are getting completely screwed over by feminism and they don't like it. But as long as those top guys are still, you know, and all the women are chasing that top 10% of guys, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to change. So I always say, like, if it's going to change, it has to be men who do it.
Yeah.
If the
So
buck stops with you, the buck stops with you.
just because we are anti-feminism doesn't mean we are anti-feminine, and we are not
No,
placing all of the blame for society on young women. Like, that's not what we're doing.
no. I mean, women, I always say that the bad news is that women are easily propagandized, and the good news is that women are easily propagandized. Everyone is, but I think women, because we have a people pleasing nature, we tend to, that's why we do good in school, right? I'm certainly this way. I like the brownie points, the pats on the head, the atta girls. I like to be good and earn my gold star. Like, I've always been that way. My dad always said it wasn't ever hard to discipline me because it would just, all he'd have to do is be like, I'm really disappointed in you. And I would be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Ugh," and cry and,
Yeah.
do better next time or whatever. But um, yeah, women are going to do whatever we're told society says we have to do to be good, to be successful, to be appreciated, whatever. So the boss bitch stuff, as long as you constantly shove that down women's throats, that's what young girls are going to do because they just want to be approved of. They want approval, they want attention, they want to be successful. And if you tell them that's what success is, that's what they're going to do. And so they do that, and then everybody shits all over them. So, like, are their attitudes wrong? And do I clap back against that a lot? Yes, I do. I do. Because some of them are just so out of control and it's getting worse and it's like a mind virus that I want to dunk on that behavior. But also, you can't expect young girls to be endlessly propagandized with this shit. Every pop star, I mean, all of my kids' friends' moms take them to Taylor Swift and Beyonce concerts and all this stuff. And it's like, what do you expect? You expect that you're going to tell them these are awesome women and this is what society says is successful, and they're going to organically somehow on their own be like, no, I want to be a virtuous stay-at-home mom who doesn't get attention and isn't on Instagram. That's never going to happen. It doesn't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as men are giving all the attention to that, that's what women will do. So I tell men who bitch about it, I'm like, listen, if you start venerating motherhood, if you start paying attention to girls who are a little more chaste, a little more picky, girls who don't give it up so easy, if those girls become the prized women, you just watch how fast
Mm-hmm.
women's behavior will change. That's how this works. So to put all of the responsibility on women is nonsensical, irrational, and it's not going to work.
Right. And you're guys, you're getting what you pay for
Yeah.
in society. I mean, they don't do OnlyFans for free. We don't do it for each other. They do it for
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And
Belle Delphine wouldn't be selling bath water for $1,000, $10,000 for a little thing of her bath water
yeah.
if there weren't millions of dudes paying for that kind of stuff.
And
It's,
I think I've come to the conclusion the only way you're going to see women behaving better is by treating them better. And I'm not saying you have to adopt a hoe and marry them,
no.
but I'm saying you have to treat women better than you have been if you
Yeah.
want to see them do better.
Yeah. So here's a really easy analogy for everybody. If you go back and watch movies from the 30s and 40s, when a woman was acting like a hussy or she was being sneaky, manipulative, devious. So like the end of Gone with the Wind, for example, Scarlett was always doing treachery and like she didn't cheat, but she came so close to cheating and was always running off with someone else's man and then taking her man for granted. She did a lot of shit that was very feminist, wrong things to do. And at the end, Rhett Butler finally goes, you know what? I don't care how hot you are. I'm just out of here. He didn't like beat her up. He didn't trash her or anything like that. There was some contentious scenes in that movie that you probably couldn't do today. But at the end, he just basically is like, I'm just not putting up with your crap. And he just left. Right.
Yeah.
And in the old movies, when women behaved insane or were being Jezebels or things like that, the men would be like, oh, she's a very uncouth woman and I won't have anything to do with it. They were just more like, oh, everybody wants a nice girl, like, don't you want to marry a nice girl? And it was like a whole different standard that men had. And so more women adhered to that. If you reward girls being 304s, you're going to get more of that behavior.
Yeah.
If all those girls are getting all the attention, you're going to get more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's basically, I'm just saying simps are going to be the death of all of us, that's why my husband will like literally time people out in his chat if they're simping for girls acting badly. No, you should, if you want chaste mothers, then reward chastity and motherhood with attention and wedding rings and commitment.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, those girls don't exist anymore. They do exist, but you've made them a rare species because you're over here paying all the attention to the girls with their boobies out.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're going to get more of that. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Where your money flows is what's the attention goes, and that's what's going to happen. So, so the fallen world is ruled by men. And then Ken brings the toxic masculinity back to Barbie Land, right? So
I know.
He takes a piece of the real world back to the heavenly realm or the Barbie Land or the Tulpa Land. And now it's all the independent Barbies are now serving the men. They're bringing them their beer and their being...
This part was funny to me because like part of me enjoyed the Kens kind of getting their revenge because of how disposable they were treated. I thought it was kind of fun. But they again made them look stupid, ridiculous, and silly because they were saying stuff like Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa House.
Yeah.
Instead of the Barbie Dream House, he names it that. And they're like, that you don't need to say it like 5 times, just in different languages. He's like, no, it's Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa House. And he tells his friends, he's like, in the real world, it's patriarchy. They respected me just because I'm a man. And that little line, I felt like, okay, there's a little something to that, right? Because there is something to be said for the fact that women don't respect men for being a man anymore. They really don't. We don't value that because women think that they've been listening to too much Destiny's Child and they're like, I can pay my own bills and I can buy it myself and I can get it myself. So I don't care if I have a man. Well, so also the other thing that we do that's wrong is send this message to men that they're disposable, unneeded, unwanted, and we have no respect for them, right? So Ken was just so happy to be paid attention to and respected. It wasn't so much the brewski beers. Like, I don't know why they called beers brewski beers, but they did.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much that, and it wasn't so much like they just wanted to exploit women. He was just super happy. He's like, people are paying attention to me and respecting me just because like I'm myself and I'm a man.
Right.
That's awesome. So like, I feel like that's something that men do really feel like now that we should probably pay some attention to as well. So I wrote that down in here. And then, yeah, all of a sudden, and they didn't explain how they hypnotized the Barbies. Did you catch that? I don't think they explained why all of a sudden the Barbies were like, because the one Barbie brings the can of beer and she goes, I like being a decoration.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly how that happened or if it was just the reality leaking through. Maybe it was just that.
Yeah. So I wrote, Ken takes over Barbie Land's government. He's getting even for feeling second class.
Yeah.
He said. So it's a revenge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like he steals Barbie's house, right? Which later, that I'll just say this part now that made me so sad. I was so sad about this. He steals Barbie's house because she never lets him in it.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "This is girl, it belongs to me. It's girls' night. You can't come in here." And so he steals the house. And then later, when they're trying to like take Barbie land back from the patriarchy and Ken has his existential crisis, he says to her, "I always thought this would be our house."
Oh.
And she was like, "No, sorry."
Yeah.
I was like, why? Come on. Like I was really thinking that the end of this movie would be like, oh, Ken and Barbie discover that they need each other.
Oh, equality.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
well, just like mutual respect of like the women are happy to be women and appreciate the men, and the men are happy to be men and appreciate the women for being women, and they
Uh-huh.
realize they need each other.
Right.
That's not what happens. So I just
No.
felt so sad because he said, "I don't know who I am without you. I love you, and I always thought this would be our house."
Right.
Which
Yeah,
is
that was
what
sad.
I always wanted as a little girl. I always wanted a husband and for it to be our house. And Barbie's
Yeah.
just like, "No, no, you should go be individual Ken and I should go be individual Barbie and we should all just live an atomized life." And I was just like,
Right. What good is the dream house with no love? Right.
yeah, no,
Um,
no babies. It's
no.
so it still just reinforced this idea that women just need each other and stuff, you know?
Right.
So I didn't love that. But yeah, all of a sudden the Barbies are indoctrinated. They literally use the term brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
And this made me think of Stepford Wives. And what was the movie that oh gosh, the other really horrible feminist movie where it's another Gnostic movie where they're trapped in 1950s land with Harry Styles.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I can't remember the name of it, but
Yeah.
it's always that if women want to be helpmeets or if we want to like bring our husband a beer, we're brainwashed. I get called this all the time. So I think that's why it stuck out to me because I get told by feminists all the time, I'm brainwashed. I have no thinking of my own. I'm brainwashed to think that I want to be a wife. I'm brainwashed to think that I enjoy, the patriarchal order that's in my house.
You're one of these ladies. They
That's what
think
they
that
think.
I know. That's so crazy. And so why are you the brainwashed one and how are they immune to brainwashing somehow? That's
Well,
my
it's
question. Like, why
well,
did they think that?
they call me a pick me.
Uh-huh.
Um, this is where we get into I didn't write my own book. My husband wrote it and told me the things to say. And so it's not my book. Let me tell you, Andrew could care less about writing a book on feminism. Like the fact that they think he would actually sit down and like do all of that research and write a book about feminism,
Yeah.
no, would never happen. The Marlboro man doesn't care about writing a book about feminism. So, but I've been accused of this numerous times that I don't think these things, these are not my thoughts, these are not my opinions. I am a brainwashed automaton, and my husband put the thoughts in my head, programmed me like a Stepford wife, and then put me in front of a camera and told me to say these things, told me to debate these people. He's actually the person running my Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually said this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was funny that in the movie, when the Barbies want to like bring Ken a beer or like hang out with him, a lot of it too was just like they were just spending time with the Kens and thinking the Kens were cool. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Oh my God, no, they're brainwashed." And I'm like, yeah, because you can't actually appreciate or love a man without being brainwashed by the patriarchy.
Well, one scene I thought was really funny was when he was like, come into my house and I'm gonna play the guitar at you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is a universal experience for every girl, I'm afraid, like
Yes,
has
it is.
been uncomfortably played the guitar at and they stare in your eyes and like sing to you and you're like,
Yeah, where he goes, I
right.
want to stare into your eyes uncomfortably for about 4 hours while I
Yeah.
sing the song at you. And they
Like
picked
that
that.
has happened literally to every woman in the whole world. It's so funny.
Yeah. So, like I said, there were some funny moments in this movie. And like they're all sitting on the beach with the fake campfires.
Uh-huh.
And they're all the Kens are singing that same Matchbox 20 song. But that's where they get into their plan for how to thwart the patriarchy.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. So their subversion was to switch partners on the men and make them jealous.
Yes. Yes.
And
So
subsequently, they go to war because of this, right?
yeah. So they go to weird Barbie. So Barbie has her existential crisis again where she just like goes like stiff and lays face down and like quits, right?
Mhm.
And she says change is terrifying. But I feel like that's like a human universal thing,
Mhm.
that change is kind of terrifying. And they go to weird Barbie who's going to help them deprogram the Barbies who've been brainwashed by the patriarchy, and they come up with this plan. um Stereotypical Barbie's crisis is that she's not good enough for anything. So she's like, I'm just not good at leadership, and I'm not a Dr. Barbie, and I'm not a President Barbie or a Supreme Court Barbie. I'm just stereotype Barbie. So I can't do anything about this problem. And I feel like, again, that doubles down on the message that just be like, it's funny because Ken's the one who's like, I just want to be enough as Ken, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But then the Barbies are the ones that don't feel good enough just being a Barbie. They don't feel good enough to just be like a stereotype of a woman.
Right.
I feel like a lot of us are stereotypical women. We're women and we're made to feel bad about it, like I said at the beginning. So I just thought it was weird that like her big crisis is someone else should fix this because I'm just stereotype Barbie and I can't do anything. But then the mom gives this big speech.
Mhm.
They're at weird Barbie's house. They're talking about how terrible this is. And she starts to accidentally deprogram one of the Barbies because she gives this big speech about what she calls the cognitive dissonance of the patriarchy. And I would say this is the exact cognitive dissonance I always talk about, which is the cognitive dissonance of feminism.
Okay.
She says, we always have to be extraordinary. We're never good enough and we're never doing it right. And women just can't win. You have to be pretty so that men will like you, but you can't be too pretty because then the women will hate you. And you have to be smart, but you can't be too smart because then men won't like you either. And we just want to get through one day feeling like we're good enough. And I'm like, okay, I feel like those expectations are put on us by feminism. At least that was my experience. It
Mhm.
wasn't good enough for me to just be a mom, right? Because people would refer to me as just a mom. Oh, it's sad that you wasted your life because you didn't go to college and get a career. And I was like, what? Um, I feel like this is what women do to ourselves. We tell women they have to be everything. I don't think men, like at least from my perspective, tell me if you disagree, I don't feel like men expect us to do everything and be everything. I've never had a man be like, well, how much do you make a year? And
Yeah.
what are your job prospects in the future? And also, can you starch the colors on my shirt? And can you sexy dance? And like, I've never had a man expect for me to be everything and do everything. I feel like feminism is the thing that puts all of that on us. It's like, you should be a mom, but you should also be a career woman, and you should be hot and stay hot and skinny, but also you shouldn't have to follow beauty stereotypes and unattainable body images and beauty standards that are invented by men. And I just have never felt like all this oppression coming from the men. I feel like it's coming from the feminists who are always telling me I'm not good enough.
Well, I don't think men want you to be all those things because then you outshine them. I mean, they don't want you to do the things that men do
Yeah.
because they don't want you to outman them. So they
I
don't.
think they're, yeah, and I think that's true, but I think the reason they don't want you to outman them is because then what women tend to do is go, well, what do I even need you for? I'm working
Yeah.
and making all the money, and you're just a dead weight and a pain in my butt. And it, like the movie we were just talking about, where at the end the lady's like, I've been doing surgery for 4 days straight, and you want to have sex with me? I am way too tired for that. And she's just like annoyed that the guy exists.
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, women do. I think men do want us to need them, but more because they just want us to appreciate when they're doing the protecting and providing thing. And I feel like in the movie theater, guys, I saw this in the theater. And when this woman, America Ferrera, plays the mom, she gives this epic speech that starts to deprogram the Barbies and make them remember that they're awesome boss bitches who can do anything. Everybody in the movie theater stood up and cheered. Except for me, I just sat there like, ugh. But
Yeah.
everybody stood up and cheered at this cognitive dissonance of like, we have so many expectations for women and it's impossible. We're not going to take it anymore. And I was like, I don't think it's the men telling us we have to be a doctor and a mom and a model and a stripper.
I was just gonna say that. Who's making all the Barbies into like astronauts and pilots and ridiculous things? Not men.
No, the
Like,
Kens don't care. The Kens
no,
didn't care.
the Kens just want them to look up to them,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
So it's like, wait a minute. And
that's
this lady's
fine
talking about the cognitive dissonance of the patriarchy. And I was like, the patriarchy isn't the ones that put all that on you. Like,
because women need men to be better than them,
yeah.
right? They need them to be stronger, smarter, faster, more talented. Like we need them to lead us
Yeah.
and
Well,
be
there
better.
is, I mean, that's like the paradox, right? The paradox of feminism is you should shine brighter than the man next to you. You should never, you should do everything so that you're never with a guy because you have to, but only because you want to. And then what happens when women do that? So let's say you do that. You become a neurosurgeon, or you're a nuclear physicist and you're like level 10 Margot Robbie hot. You're smart, you're articulate, you're just everything. You check all the boxes. Then what happens is you're Giselle Bundchen, and even Tom Brady's not good enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like when women try to do that, when they try to like prove that they can be better than their man and they can outshine their man and they're the competent one and they're the best one, they tend to see the man, even if he's an awesome man, they tend to see him as not attractive, not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this all the time. You see this so often where women will get, like Miley Cyrus was dating who's the hot Australian actor she was married to. And it was the same thing. She was like, but what do I need him for? Because I can do all the things he can do for me, but better.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's like single and angry and a feminist.
Well, he did cheat on her a million times though, but
Oh, he did.
oh yeah.
Well, that might be different then. But you see this a lot where it's like, you want to be better than your man, but the minute you are, he's no longer
You
attractive to
lose
you.
respect
You
for
want to move
them.
up.
Yeah.
You want to hypergamy. You want to move up. So it's like, I don't think you can have it all at the same time. I think
Yeah.
trying to do that is like a losing game.
Did you notice the Barbie with the TV in her back?
Yeah.
When they were saying these were our actual Barbies of the past, like I
Mhm.
never knew about this one, but it was very transhumanist. Like she was part television, her body.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even, it was funny because she's like, I have a TV in my back.
Yeah.
Who would want that? Like, and I was like, yeah, who would want that? I don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
did they think you could play with your doll and then flip it over and watch cartoons on the
It was
TV?
weird. Okay, so the Margot Robbie being mid controversy is kind of meta because you were talking about that she was laying down and she was complaining the perfect woman isn't good enough,
Yeah.
right? Because she's literally like Barbie.
Yeah.
And all the expectations for women ran, we went over that, but this happened in real life with them calling Margot Robbie mid.
Yeah.
And then, so the rant deprograms all the Barbies. They got to get the Barbies away from their Kens to deprogram them. Did you mention?
Yeah. I put that in here. I said they're deprogramming brainwashed Barbies by separating them from the Kens.
Yes.
And it's because when the lady gives the speech, they're like, oh my gosh, you deprogrammed her by giving a voice to what it means to be a woman under the cognitive dissonance of the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the plan was like to trick them and distract them to get the Barbie away from her and then put her in the van where the mom reminds her what a boss bitch she is. And then they suddenly are like, what happened? I don't want to be an ornament. I don't want to be a decoration. I was a Supreme Court justice. So yeah, that's like the plot. And then like you said, they turn the Kens against each other so that they can reinstate the Constitution or whatever, right?
So they can distract them from government. They're warring and they
Yeah.
missed their deadline of voting or whatever, and the Barbies took back the government of Barbie Land.
That's kind of messed up when you think about it. Like, we'll send all the men off to war with each other so that we can just like have all the power.
Yeah, it was really weird. And then at the end, Ken cries and
Yeah.
is relieved that the women take the government back over because he says it was hard running stuff. It was just too
Yeah.
hard for the men to run stuff. So it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And Barbie apologizes to Ken, and you think that they're going to become a couple,
Yeah.
but they don't. And the end is so weird.
Oh my God. The end is just, I don't even, I'm interested in your thoughts on the end
Okay.
because, yeah, we already talked about how he says to her, like, I always thought this would be our house. And she's like, no, I have to find out what it means to be Barbie. And there was a line I wrote down where they say, somebody, I don't remember who said it, but they basically said that Ken was just created to worship Barbie,
Uh-huh.
that his purpose was just to worship Barbie. And he's like, I'm Ken and I'm Kenough.
Yeah.
It's enough for me to just worship Barbie from afar and be permanently friend zoned. I don't ever get to have a family or respect or authority. I just worship Barbie and that's who I am. And
He
like he
can
gives another guy his fur stole or something. Just very bizarre.
he can subscribe to Barbie's OnlyFans and worship her that way, right?
Yeah.
And so the ending is the Sophia Ruth handler comes to Barbie Land and brings Barbie into the in-between world to give her some wisdom.
Yes.
And this ends up with Barbie having her like Pinocchio moment where she becomes a real woman,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
climax of the movie, you think, well, it's Barbie in the real world, and
Mhm.
you think she's going to go to her first office job or her first,
Yeah.
class of college or something like that. But she walks into the building and she's like, I'm here to see the gynecologist.
Yeah. And then that's the end.
Yeah. So
So what does that
somehow
mean?
Barbie transcended Barbie Land and became a real woman for the real world. And now she has genitals.
Yeah, I'm like, so she decided she was gonna, because Ruth Handler,
Right?
um, she says, I created you to not have an ending.
Uh-huh.
And Barbie says she wants to be human. And so Ruth says to her, like, you have to understand that means that you're going to be mortal.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand what that means. And she's like, okay, I do. And I choose it anyway. And like you said, all of a sudden she goes to real world and she, I'm like, was this whole movie about how Barbie just wanted a vajayjay?
It got weird.
It got weird.
Yeah, it
It's
got
a
really
very weird ending. And my daughters were kind of just like looking at me like, what?
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure it out either. They didn't know what it meant either. So I don't know, like, is there a Gnostic like a Gnostic interpretation of why she would give up her immortality to have a vagina? And why the very first thing she does is go to the gyno? Or is that just like some clever, silly ending? Like, am I reading too much into it?
No, I mean, Gnosticism would be the opposite, like getting rid of your material body to transcend and go to the pleroma or wherever the gods. So breaking free of material world. So this is kind of like the opposite of that, like becoming enfleshed. Ooh, maybe
I have something else that Ruth
getting
said.
bodied is the opposite of a Gnostic
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah, that's why I
That's
don't get it.
interesting.
Because Ruth said to her, I made you not to have an ending because humans make things up like patriarchy and then they die.
Mm.
I was like, first of all, okay, like we would believe that God made the created order. Not
Mhm.
that this idea that everything's a social construct and humans literally socially construct everything and everything's just made up is not exactly true, like from our worldview.
Mhm.
But this is what Ruth says to her. And she said, we mothers stand still so our daughters can look back and see how far they've come. Which also, like, I was just, the whole ending was so confusing to me that I was like, am I reading too much into this and trying to find meaning where there isn't any? And they just had to find some kind of clever way to sew things up at the end. But it was like they covered so much deep stuff throughout the whole movie that the ending just seemed weird and out of place to me. And I couldn't really make sense of it.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember the
and
ending
I
of
thought this is going to be seen by girls. I know it's a PG-13 movie, but it was filled with like, probably 10 to 16-year-old girls in the theater. And the whole point of the movie is Barbie becomes human so she can go to the gynecologist and have a vagina. Like,
yeah, that is so weird. And then what is the extension of that is now she can have sex and then
yeah.
she can practice pro-choice
Mm-hmm.
if she chooses. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm interested to see in the comments what y'all who are watching think. Like, if you guys had a different take on the ending, or if any of you guys found anything like deeper in that ending. But yeah, maybe it is. I was almost like my first thought was kind of like, so the point of being a woman is sexual power?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not enough to have all the political power and be the boss and the career woman and have all the material things and have the adoration of all the NPC Kens.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to be in the real world where she has real sexual power. Is
Mm.
that what it is? I don't know. But then I was like, I don't know if that fits with the rest of the movie. So I just wasn't sure what to do with the ending. I just thought it
Well,
was weird.
now she can have all the real boyfriends she wants and abandon Ken who loves her because he's not packing anything.
Yeah, I guess
I
maybe.
don't know.
Well, that's why I was like, is the reason that she doesn't? Well, they also make a reference to like under the patriarchy. This is so funny. Under the patriarchy, the Kens want uh where is it? Low, it's like low commitment long-term girlfriends or something. I
Oh
have it
yeah.
on here. But yeah, they don't want to get married, but they want all of the Barbies to be in low commitment, long term relationships with them or something.
Yeah, that's pretty common in the feminism
Yeah.
uh milieu.
Yeah, that's really more of a feminist idea. Like, I thought it was funny that they were putting that on the men because I was like, no, the men, like the feminists are always telling us men just want marriage because it's a trap and then you can't leave and then they can control you forever and R word you and beat you and all that stuff. And I just wrote a whole Substack piece on how long-term relationship living situations are far more prone to like abuse, dysfunction, all of the bad things than marriages are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have 50 years of data now that shows that like two married biological parents raising the kids is by far the safest for kids, but it's also the safest for women. It has the lowest rate of domestic abuse, and the higher things are things like LGBT relationships, long-term living situations with, because of the lack of the commitment and because of the chaos and the instability in the relationship, are much more prone to violence. Like, we have 4 giant government studies. They do this every like 15 or 20 years. So I thought that was weird that they put that on the Kens, that the Kens are the ones who don't want to get married. Uh, all I get is letters from men going, I really just want to get married and have a family, but I don't know if any women want to anymore. I don't know where to find the ones who do. Help me find them. And I'm like, I don't know. So I don't feel like that's the patriarchy putting that on us either. I feel like that's another thing that actually feminism put on us that they're blaming on the patriarchy.
Right.
So, but yeah, the ending, I'd be very interested if anybody has like a brilliant take on the ending because I didn't get it. And I'm not the reason I only do movies with you is because I'm not the best at that. Okay, like you're the expert at that, Jay's the expert at that. I'm not like the best. I can give you my take on a feminist movie for sure, but I thought maybe Jamie will know some like deeper thing about this ending at the gynecologist, like,
Yeah. We'll have to think about
maybe
it.
it was just a joke. Like, maybe it was just a joke that now she has genitals and I'm reading too much into it. I don't
I
know.
think it was like a Pinocchio thing. And me and Jay are gonna do Oppenheimer and Barbie, so maybe he'll have some insights into that. But thank you so much. This was a really fun show.
Yeah.
And I am bona fide based, according to Rachel. And we covered Barbie, I think, better than anybody has so far. And next time you see me and Rachel, we're going to be on her channel and we're going to be talking about sex bots, right?
Yes. The people on my channel don't have any clue like how great you are at that stuff. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to know about, because this is really huge. It's in so much of the news and the current events, and everybody's talking about AI
Mm-hmm.
and sex bots
Mm-hmm.
being the thing because we have this huge incel problem. We have super low birth rates. They're talking about artificial wombs in the future. Like I've covered this with Patrick and with Jim Bob and a few people, and I'm like, I have to have Jamie on to talk about it because this is like I've seen you do your speeches and your presentations on it, and I'm like, she's so good with this topic, and I need her to like show us what's going on with this because I feel like you really understand it better than anyone. So I'm
Nice.
super excited for the people on my channel to see that.
Nice. Well, we will do that very soon in the coming couple weeks. And I want to thank you guys for watching. And I am Esoteric Barbie. And she's Malibu Barbie. Signing
I'm
off.
80s Malibu
80s
Barbie.
Malibu
My
Barbie.
Barbie wave. Wait, did it go like this?
Barbie doesn't bend, right? It's like,
Yeah.
bye.